Hello everybody, once again it is Lehman Crafton aka Zorvalachan, Less Than Guru, and I'm continuing with the Torg settings. This is another invader. This is a silent invader that was known as Nippon Tech. In Torg Eternity, this realm changed to become Pan-Pacifica. And basically in the original Torg, I do want to make a clarification. If you watch my other videos, I made a mistake, and if I make mistakes, I will admit that I was wrong, and I was, for whatever reason, well actually the reason was because it's this way in Torg Eternity. I was saying that Core Earth social axiom was 23, and in fact it is 21. So when I was doing my video for the Land Below and Terra, I was mentioning that the Terra was higher than the Nile Empire but lower than Core Earth, and that is incorrect. It is the same as Core Earth. I figured that out today when I was looking over Nippon Tech and saw that its social axiom was 22, and I knew that it was one higher than Core Earth, so I kind of then had that realization that I had been doing things incorrectly. So on all those past videos for all the settings, I put a little edit in the description saying that if I said that it was 23, that I was incorrect, and that it's actually 21. So what I want to do now is talk about Nippon Tech. So Nippon Tech is kind of the secret invasion, meaning it wasn't apparent. And there was a few reasons for this, both mechanically and setting-wise, reality-wise. So the mechanical reason is most of the axioms are very, very close to Core Earth. So as I mentioned, I had got Core Earth wrong, but Core Earth is 21 with its social axiom. And Nippon Tech is 22, so it's just one above Core Earth. The same is with Tech. Tech for Core Earth is 23, and it's 24 for Nippon Tech. So a lot of what Nippon Tech could do, both socially and technologically, is they could introduce ideas and technology that people from Core Earth could kind of accept as just being on that bleeding edge of, you know, figuring out stuff tech-wise or even social-wise, different things that they could do socially. And that was very close. Core Earth also has a spiritual axiom of 9, and Nippon Tech is an 8, so it's just 1 point less. The big difference, and it's really not that big of a difference if you think about it, is the magic. There is the ability to do spells and magic on Core Earth, but when we talk about Core Earth, I'll explain why it wasn't necessarily the exact same as magic on, say, Isle or even Cyber Papacy or Nile Empire. It was a lot harder to do just magically. Core Earth actually had to use its spiritual axiom to supplement the magical axiom, but that's going to be a different video. So with Nippon Tech, it's actually 2. So it's just 1 point higher than the Living Land. And one of the things that's I found very interesting was Nippon Tech is kind of like a not very vibrant. It's not very colorful. It's kind of gray and a small mist. It's not the deep mist like Living Land, but there's like a fog type thing off in the distance, so you always kind of see things gray off in the distance. And instead of making it sound like this is because of something with Nippon Tech, they actually did kind of a divergent of most role-playing games, which always take Earth or humans as a standard and explain other races and places as being different and explaining why. Actually, they explained why Earth was different, and it was Earth's magic axiom, even though it's much lower than, say, Isle. It was high enough to give us vibrant colors. And that was always interesting to me, that they kind of said Earth is different because of this. If you actually didn't have magic or had very low magic, things would not be so colorful. They would kind of be drab, and it's Earth's innate magic that makes things vibrant and colorful and things like that. So I thought that was kind of really interesting. So those were the 4 axioms of Nippon Tech, and there was different world laws, like all the settings, all the realities, and the world laws of Nippon Tech were like the law of profit, which was basically the rich get richer, and if you were rich, you could do things to help find things that you could buy and stuff like that. Nippon Tech is a realm also that had corporate intrigue. And if you wanted to make a character, there were templates for basically CEOs and rich people, and you could buy companies and play the stock market, and they have a whole subsystem rules on how that works. And that's interesting if you want to go that way with your Nippon Tech. So that's the law of profit. They have the law of intrigue, which was kind of interesting in the fact that whenever you're trying to sneak or lie to people, persuade people through lies and deception, you could get a bonus to it. If you just tried to be truthful, people didn't, there's like everybody's lying and being sneaky and conniving and tricking each other and stuff, that if you're actually honest, they're less likely to believe you, because it just doesn't come into their head that, you know, somebody's actually being honest with them. So that was one thing that they had. And then they had the law of vengeance, which is if somebody did something a great grievance to you, like physical harm or ruining your life, destroying a company you built, killing a beloved family member, or something like that. If you waited at least 48 hours after that bad thing occurred to you, then you got bonuses when you went up against that person later. So it was kind of a vengeance type thing, not an immediate drama, you know, or karma, sorry, not that's karma, but you spent time and now you're going to enact vengeance. So that was kind of a thing with the realm. With the spirituality, it was an 8, so it was lower than core Earth. There were a few miracles that they could do, but a lot of their miracles like either improved themselves or improved like a staff or a sword or something like that. They didn't have any big call lightning bolts down from their god and hit things. They had one that like made a harsh wind, or you could kind of maybe astral project and things like that, but nothing directly physical. Even their fire spell just kind of, or miracle, just made a fire like grow 20 times bigger than what it was. So it wasn't even, you know, throwing fireballs or things like that. Magic, just at a 2, you don't even worry about magic. You couldn't do I mean, you could learn magic, but it would always be a contradiction. There's no magic is pretty much not supported by Nippon Tech. There were a few things. They had ninjas and other martial artists that you could do, and the rules have pretty decent way of structuring your martial arts that you could learn different techniques. And when you started off, you had like so many times you could try. I think it was 9. You had 9 tries, and if you succeeded in certain tests, then you were able to get that. And when you boosted up your martial arts skill, then you're able to do tests until you failed, basically, and you could learn martial artist techniques. Once you reached the techniques, then you could maybe choose a different martial arts, or they even kind of had rules because they broke down all the martial arts and had a big list of them. You could create your own martial arts. So like where Isle had spells and Terra and Nile Empire had weird science. You could kind of do that. You weren't actually inventing techniques, but you would invent the martial arts style, which you would take the various techniques and you would put them in an order that was unique to you. So that was something that I had one player that really liked doing. He learned like 3 or 4 different martial arts styles during the 25 years that we played, and was creating his own when we stopped with that and went over to Torg Eternity. I do want to say one of the things that Nippon Tech had, or the whole concept behind Nippon Tech, that kind of went away in Torg Eternity, is there was a lot of caricature, and there were we're looking at late 80s, early 90s American mentality when writing this. So there's a big fear at the time that the Japanese were getting all high tech and they were going to beat us economically and things like that. So a lot of those kind of stereotypes and fears are kind of written into the Nippon Tech book. So they, in Torg Eternity, they wanted to kind of get rid of that for good reason. And that's why it changed to Pan-Pacific. It didn't focus on Japan. It's kind of a whole Eastern Asia area. Now, Nippon Tech, in the original book, it did start off in Japan, but then it did expand to the mainland Asia. But that was something that happened later, whereas in Torg Eternity, it's kind of immediately right there. So that's one of the things that if you play original Torg now, you might want to look at and see what maybe needs to be dialed back. One of the tropes that is ridiculous, but it always happened in a lot of the adventures, is basically any Asian person, especially Japanese person you saw, was part of Nippon Tech, was part of a corporation and things like that. So that's kind of, it's just, why wouldn't they have, Caucasian white people agents also, if they're supposed to be a secret invasion because they're so close to core Earth, they should have all types of different, people working for them and in their realm. It shouldn't just be, the Game Master said that there were some Japanese tourists with cameras, so okay, they must be Kanawa agents, that type of thing. So do take that into consideration if you look at this, and bring other things to it. The original Cosm for the reality is this guy's in charge of it, and he is known as Ryuichi Kanawa, but his real name is 3327. Everybody went by a number, not a name. So his Cosm is a very corporate Cosm. Everything is for profit, and they take the darkness device of drawing possibility energy with him and his darkness device, Daikoku, which is a laptop computer during Torg Eternity. But it's all based on profit and like suppressing your emotions, not being emotional, caring about your company and your company's growth more than your family and things like that. So they had a big mentality of, draining possibility energy is like resources. It's like an oil company draining out all the oil of a planet, and that's the way that they were thinking. 3327 himself, their tech is high enough that they can have clones. So that was one of the things where he had various clones of himself. So if your Storm Knights ever went up against him and they defeated him, maybe they just defeated a clone, and that kind of went with the law of intrigue. And they also were high enough tech 24 that they could kind of, in some cases, boost it up to 25. There's a template in the main book that's kind of, it's really weird, because when you look at the template, and the way that it's set up, it makes it look like it's an Iron Man type suit of armor, you know, mecha armor, but just personal. Like I said, very much like Iron Man. But when you read about it, it makes it sound like it was a mental thing, that like a cap you put on a helmet or a cap, and it would send your consciousness to a robot. And that was something that was always kind of weird, is I never understood which one it was. I allowed one player at one time to use that template, and I had him use it like the Iron Man, not as the consciousness into the body. So that's kind of weird. And that was Tech 25, so that was between Nippon Tech and Cyber Papacy. So they're able to push that tech just a little. It's also a very, like I said, martial arts is involved, modern rendition of ancient martial arts styles, but it's also very James Bondish reality. So if you wanted to have that super spy that had neat little gadgets and stuff, Nippon Tech was the realm that you wanted to go with that. As I mentioned in previous videos, like Isle had Pixod's Practical Grimoire, which was spells. It also had Creatures of Isle for the Game Masters. Nile Empire, even though Terra was kind of separate at the time, the pulp powers and everything fit well, and if you wanted to use those new weird science rules, you could use those. And pretty much almost every reality except Living Land had some type of supplement. And even, like, if you might think, oh, the Cleric book, but the Cleric book had every single religion from every single pretty much source book. It was one of the last source books put out, so it had, you know, compiled everything from all the previous sources. Living Land really didn't have much of another book dedicated to it. There was a very good adventure, The Temple of Rex Stelek, that was written by Shane Hensley, who went on to found Pinnacle Entertainment, Deadlands, Savage Worlds, and then came back and was one of the main writers of Torg Eternity. That's kind of where he got his start, and that's really good. And it comes up with an alternate deity of Rex Stelek that's kind of an undead death god, and kind of competes with Lanala, or has the possibility. And they have some neat things there as kind of helping out the Living Land a bit. But really that land below that became the land above, that was kind of their fix. So instead of getting source material for the original stuff, they went off into different directions. But Nippon Tech is what we're talking about now, and Nippon Tech had three source books. And again, the camera gets weird when it's not just me, so we'll see how well it can go. So this here is Kanawa Personal Weapons. Does it help if I open up? No. Then you had Heavy Weapons, Kanawa Heavy Weapons. And Kanawa Land Vehicles. So these were very good ideas that, in my opinion, were implemented horribly. Now, if you remember my Isle book, I liked that they had a full, 2-page spread for every monster. They had a big picture, a big description. They showed where it was in the realm. They showed where it was in the in the cosm, in the realm, and then kind of a size comparison chart. With these, they list like and again, it's going to be hard to see, but over here, if you look over on this side here, they have a cannon, and they have one weapon per each, and this is the Heavy Weapons book. They have one weapon per page with a picture, which is nice. Some of their pictures are wrong. They have a knife gun that is just a gun with a little bitty blade attached, and actually that's in the personal weapons one. And sword pistol is what they call it. And what they had is they had a revolver that almost looked like the little it's not really a knife, but the little part of nail clippers that comes out so you can get under your nails and clean it. And it looked like it had that on it. It was absolutely nothing what real sword pistols look like. And I actually went on the internet when I actually got this book back in the early 2000s and printed off some actual real pictures of sword pistols and taped them into this book just because it was ridiculous. So some of their artwork did not actually match the reality of what an item was. These were interesting, and again, it was a great concept because Kanagawa is doing a unseen invasion, a hidden invasion. They don't come in either just destroying stuff like Baraka. They're not coming in like the cyber papacy and saying we're here to save you. They're not announcing that they're there. They're trying to say, oh, Japan didn't get taken over, but we're doing, we're going to help the world by this new bleeding edge technology and these new ways to think of stuff, and we're going to buy out your businesses and make them better, and stuff like this. So part of that is this Kanagawa Corporation, this main big corporation, and that's where if you see that symbol that looks like a K, or over here, if I can my hand there, that big building with the K, that's the Kanagawa Corporation logo. And the Kanagawa Corporation was, a big corporation. It had other corporations under it, and they made weapons, both heavy weapons and personal weapons and vehicles that could fit all axioms. So if you wanted to go to Isle, you could buy a Kanagawa-made sword or a Kanagawa-made horse carriage or things like that. Or if you went to Orosh, which is late 1800s, you could buy like a steam car or a rifle that worked back then, that type of thing. So the idea of having these 3 books that had all these choices was good, but they wasted in my opinion, they wasted so much space only having one vehicle per page or one weapon per page, where they could have stuck so much more into these books, or even took all 3 of them. And I know they're trying to push out product and get people to buy, but this whole thing could have just been one big catalog type book that had many things. A lot of the personal weapons they have, like for their actual Tech 24, was like eyeglasses that could shoot out darts or little wrist laser type things, which were interesting. But again, one of the things that Kanagawa, or that Nippon Tech in original Torg did badly, they did the opposite of what I said I liked about cyber papacy and them not dating themselves by not using real world terms. But in the Nippon Tech book, they actually use real world terms about future tech. So if their tech is 24 and core Earth is 23, and core Earth is supposed to be no matter when you are, it's near now. It's called, the near now. Then things that you put a real world description on will become obsolete, and probably sooner than later. So some of the things, like when you look at their gear, just they have a Nintendo 60, like I mentioned before, Nintendo 64-bit system. They're talking about like Zelda 6. They're just things like that, which are kind of what I want to say, completely obsolete even by today's standards. And then there's other things in here that are completely beyond what we have. So their whole concept of different types of tech, or different all over the place. Like they even have, electronic lock picks and electronic locks, which we've had for quite a long time. So it's no longer something advanced. It's in our past. So I really liked the way Cyber Papacy just came up with completely different terms. They didn't use megabytes. They didn't use gigabytes. They didn't talk about, things that are real, even if it's kind of what we're thinking about in the future, because at some time we will get there. So that's kind of one thing that I thought was kind of bad about Nippon Tech, and I was happy Torg Eternity did it even in a completely different way with Cyber Papacy, and I hope they don't revert with Nippon Tech to going back to using real world things because of the with Pan Pacifica, because Pan Pacifica is kind of that really close axioms to Core Earth in both Nippon Tech and Pacifica, depending on if it's original Torg or Torg Eternity. So what I've talked about 3327, talked about the home cosm is called Marketplace, and like I said, it's just all corporate type stuff. In the realm, you had the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia, that played in a part, and you also had a bunch of smaller companies that were opposed to the Kanawa company, and it was basically like a whole bunch of smaller companies getting together. They formed, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but the Rauru block, Rauru block, which was a group of corporations that kind of banded together to keep Kanawa from buying them out, basically. So the Storm Knights could go through them to kind of prevent Kanawa for just taking over everything economically. It did have that business sub-rule set, which was interesting. My Storm Knights had one character who was a CEO, and all my various Storm Knight groups, after the adventure, if they had amassed some money, they would put some money into the corporation and play the stock market in game, and there's rules for it. So, that if you want, most people, I'm assuming, would think that that's not fun at all. Most of my players didn't think it was fun to do, but one player thought that it was pretty interesting, so all the other players just donated money and were like, you figure it out. They didn't donate what they needed, they just donated excess money. And every game month you would roll and figure out what you were if you had won or lost some of your funds. So that was an interesting rule subset that they had. So went through no magic, spirituality, martial arts, the high tech, the three source books. So I think that's pretty much it. So this was a hidden invasion, but at some point, like I said, the stereotypes and caricatures of Nippon Tech also got out of hand, like it did with other places, and any Asian person you saw, especially if they were Japanese, they were from Kanawa. And that kind of, why, if you're a hidden invasion and you are trying to do a buyout or something in, California, why not have, I don't know, a diversity type thing. So diversity was very not in Nippon Tech, and that's it. So I'm happy for the changes that Pan Pacifica made. It kind of, if you wanted to do corporate stuff, you can. They're coming out with martial art type things, key powers. They have Electric Samurai, and they have a plague in Nippon Tech, or in Pan Pacifica. Nippon Tech did not have that aspect at all. So a James Bondish type realm with corporate intrigue, vengeance, martial artist type thing. So that is Nippon Tech. So my next video will be for Orosh, another invader, and the one of the guy who, or the being who came up with the whole plan to take over Core Earth, the Gaunt Man. So we will talk about him next. Once again, if you like, you can hit the like. If you dislike, you can hit the dislike. If you want to subscribe, you can press the subscribe button. And leave your comments. Tell me what you think about Nippon Tech. What did you like? What didn't you like? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And until next time, I am Lehman Crafton, aka Zorval Chan Less Than Guru. And I will catch you later.